Don't clap yet. I haven't said anything. How's everybody doing? You feeling that spring surge about to arrive? Yeah, I certainly am. Wow. This Mercury retrograde has been quite a profound journey for me. I hope it has been for you as well. The phrase I got for this particular retrograde is the particular phrase I got for this retrograde as Laura walks in is if you see the Buddha in the road, what do you do?
Pick him up.
Kill him. That's a common phrase in the New Age. The Piscean portal is the portal to the ecstatic, to the source itself. We can experience that portal through an exalted teacher or in a deeply personal relationship, where the portal to the ecstatic is opened and we experience this. We just get high. What do we commonly call that when we meet someone who just gets us high like that? What do we call that?
Love at first sight.
Falling in love with someone, right? So the Piscean portal on the human level is that experience of falling in love with someone. So what happens in that initial period with that other person? And hopefully it's mutual. What happens with that? What are you experiencing with that person? You see no wrong in them, right? You experience them as an ecstatic expression of the divine in your life. And there's a particular heyoka. Heyoka is the trickster's element of the spirit. You have two people fall in love, have that high ecstatic experience, and what occurs during that period? What happens during that period?
Becoming one.
Yeah, you're deeply bonded to that person. So, how does falling in love evolve? What does it evolve to?
Usually it's a falling out.
That's. I'm talking about the ideal evolution. You move from falling in love to falling into love, where love becomes a more conscious, awakened experience. And through that soulmate of yours, you explore the power of love itself and its nature. So the Piscean portal, with Neptune in Pisces as well, is profound, because the ruler of Pisces is also Neptune in her own sign. Has been a deep exploration of this higher, more ecstatic, exalted love channeled into the human experience, either through a teacher, a guru, or a personal relationship that opens the portal to the ecstatic. So what might you think happens when Mercury, our conscious awareness, our mind, in Pisces goes retrograde? What happens during a retrograde?
You don't balance the checkbook.
Well, Pisces is not about balancing your checkbook. Well, that's the opposite in Virgo. Yeah, that's right. So, the image I got is, the image associated with falling in love with someone is rose-colored glasses. Your glasses have a really distinct rose or pink tint to them. So as Mercury goes retrograde, especially back into Aquarius, that rose color begins to wear off, and as it's gone back into Aquarius, clear seeing, we're wearing glasses now without any tint. So the process of the initiation to clear seeing in Pisces is the process of disillusionment. Disillusionment, taking the illusion away, is actually a very healthy and important phase of initiation. the initial experience of that person may actually be true, of experiencing that person's highest octave, their high self, their most glorious and exalted self, falling in love with that because you're experiencing that with that person. So the disillusionment process is not saying that that's not true. It's always there. It's the highest ideal. But as the it's like I'm reminded of people who take ecstasy or MDMA at a party and then get married. The next morning they wake up and say, "What the?" That's kind of the I don't know if everyone's done MDMA or the love drug. You know what I'm talking about. It's kind of like the high wearing off. And the reality of the person's humanity beginning to reveal itself, and the initial experience of disillusionment can feel like you've been deceived. You haven't been. You're just seeing the human experience of that higher octave of love in its struggle to perfect itself. Because that love is not perfected until it's experienced in the human dimension, in the mortal world, in a consistent and perfected way. So many people in relationship will then feel like they've fallen in love with the wrong person, because the quote-unquote real person is now emerging. The rose-colored glasses are now seeing clearly. So if in fact you are in a personal relationship during this retrograde period, you're learning to master discernment between the humanity of the person you're living with or experiencing with and the higher potential of their true self, which we're all striving to achieve. And if you've been involved with a master teaching or teacher of some kind, that same process occurs. It just reminds me of a story that Ram Dass told about his teacher. He was sitting at the foot of the teacher, with the teacher up above him, behind him, facing the crowd. And every once in a while, the whole group would just bust out laughing. He asked them, why are they laughing? And it turns out the teacher was smoking a cigarette and dumping the ashes on Ram Dass's bald head. Without him knowing it. And the teacher was just pointing out how human he is, and not to put anyone or any person on a pedestal. Because when you do that, it's impossible for them not to fail. So I'm very careful not to put someone I love on a pedestal. Demand that she be my goddess in perfection and me bowing at her feet, because I know she's just a human being. And if I do that, I'm putting an unfair burden, yeah, that's a good word. I'm putting unfair pressure upon her to meet a high ideal which no human being in this that I know of can actually achieve fully. We're all striving for that, but it's important that we recognize each other's humanity in order for real love to be perfected. How many of you have been going through that, experiencing on some level? Yeah, some. So, as I mentioned earlier, the process of disillusionment is actually very important and very healthy. So if you feel disillusioned, know that you are being blessed and given an opportunity for more perfect discernment. And that the high ideal that you've been searching for, seeking to achieve, is still very real, but you're becoming more aware of the process through which that high ideal can actually be achieved and maintained in this 3D world. So as Mercury has retrograded back into Aquarius and is about to go direct on Monday, is that right? Yes. Yeah, so during the station point, either retrograde or direct, we get master teachings about the nature of the the teaching that we've been experiencing for the last 3 weeks with Mercury. And as it's gone back into Aquarius, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is all about frequency. And Uranus rules is associated with the 11th house, your friendship circle. And also what I understand is your soul group. So those you are on just a similar frequency with Uranus, you vibe with, are your soul group. That's the friendship circle that you really relate to as your soul family. So on a personal level, then the retrograde into Aquarius would say, okay, the rose-colored glasses I've changed to clear seeing. Does this person really vibe with me? Is this person really my friend? Do we operate on a similar frequency? So establishing that understanding of who really you do vibe with as a friend, your friendship circle, then as Mercury goes direct and back into Pisces again, you will have at the core of that ecstatic experience, that exalted, falling into love experience with the foundation of friendship, where you recognize each other's humanity and then are on solid footing to rise in frequency together into that more ecstatic state of consciousness. So that's pretty much what's going on now, and you don't have to be in a personal relationship to achieve that. But we're becoming more aware of who we now actually truly vibe with, who operates on a similar frequency to our own, and who really is part of our soul tribe, our community. So during these next 3 days into mid next week, we will have opportunities for the universe to demonstrate what I'm suggesting here in full color. And so I'm always very I'm extra alert to who just shows up for me or with me during that station period, which, Mercury goes direct on Monday. But the 3 days before and after is still basically at a perfect standstill. Go ahead.
The next 3 days, I'm sorry, I missed the before the next 3 days. What is the next 3 days?
The next 3 days, okay. Thank you for reminding me to speak into the mic. The next Mercury stations direct on Monday. He's still retrograde. That's much better. I can hear myself. So the 3 days before, which is starting today, and into the middle of next week, we have significant events, signature events that demonstrate what we've been learning through the last 3 weeks about clear seeing, because your Aquarius is about clear seeing, particularly in 2020. And during, retrogrades are really beautiful because you don't really need to make things happen. The events or people come right to you, right to your doorstep. They just show up. It's very magnetic in that way. But as Mercury goes direct, we become conscious of how to proceed with what we can put weight down on, with our beginning to really feel and understand that we are now seeing clearly enough to trust our discernment. During the retrograde phase, you think you saw, but you realize you didn't. And that's part of the perfection or disillusionment process that perfects our discernment and to achieve 2020 vision. It's like having to go back to the optometrist again and say, well, these glasses are great, they're still kind of blurry, and I need a new prescription here. And by Monday, that new prescription will have arrived, and you start seeing the world clearly. Oh, okay. And over then the next following 3 weeks, then Mercury passing back through the same area of the sky again, we become increasingly clear about the nature and gift of the disillusionment process that has made it possible for us to see clearly. And then, any questions or comments about what I've shared? Okay.
On Monday, I bring my glasses back to the optometrist because I see better without.
Are you really? Huh? Okay, well, you're right in tune. Okay, perfect. On March 26th, the Sun does conjunct Neptune. So the experience of our inner fire, the Sun, combined with Neptune, really brings to light in full manifestation, begins to bring to full manifestation the gift of love experienced in the human realm. And then by April 3rd, Mercury finally reaches Neptune in Pisces, bringing full clarity about the true nature of the exalted expressed in the human realm. So it's a real beautiful period of, starting on Monday especially, of us, the world really beginning to make sense again. On March 21st, we have the equinox on March 19th, and then followed a couple days later by Saturn entering Aquarius. This is a 30-year cycle. Saturn does co-rule Aquarius. So in the old system, before Uranus was discovered, Saturn was the ruler of Aquarius. This is the very beginning of a touchstone that will last through the end of July, with Saturn going back into Capricorn, of the coming age of awakening, heralded by the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on the winter solstice of this year, 1221, starting a 200-year phase of Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions in the air signs. So it's really fascinating that Saturn would jump the gun into Aquarius early, make a two-pole conjunction to the future Jupiter-Saturn conjunction degree before we actually experience the beginning of this real age of awakening, starting basically in 2021 onward. You've heard me speak about the evolutionary nature of the signs. The signs aren't really separate from one another, just like you'll have different grades in school that are distinct from one another, but really they're not really separate from one another. They're just a phase of an ongoing process of learning and evolution. Capricorn, Saturn's been in his own sign for the last basically 3 years. So the last 3 years have been about our being tested in the integrity of the medicine we carry, how we have grown up to adult status, because Capricorn rules the skeletal structure. It enables you to stand tall in your own power. And Saturn, because he's gone through 9 phases before he entered his own sign, is the voice of experience. Can be the voice of wisdom. It's the father power. What is the foundation of your authority? Anyone? What can you speak with confidence about? Experience. The voice of experience. It's what you have experienced personally and directly within your own being that you can speak with inner authority about. True wisdom is always based on direct personal experience. So each one of you has a certain level of authority and mastery within you that's unique to you, because only you have had your own personal life experience that's unique to you. So the voice of wisdom that you then share with others is what you've learned from your own personal experience. You've made it real. You've walked with it. You've tested it out. You've come to an understanding of a certain aspect of your own nature because you've experienced it directly, and then you can speak from with inner authority. So once you've matured to adulthood, Capricorn is naturally followed by Aquarius. Aquarius is a constellation of those who've matured to adult stature, then vibing at the same frequency, sharing their inner authority, their mastery, with a circle of others with whom they feel that they are a community of brethren or sisters. So Saturn entering Aquarius is a dividing point. From an evolutionary perspective, in the old system, before Uranus and the other planets were discovered, Saturn then repeated its rulership in Aquarius, and then went back to Jupiter, back toward the Sun in Pisces, and then Mars, Aries, back to start a whole new cycle. So the dual rulership in Aquarius of both Saturn and Uranus suggests a fork in the road. The Aquarius can be a very differently experienced sign. It can either be very proactive and progressive, or it can be very reactive, Saturn rules, in attempting to preserve the past, or stick to tradition. That the circle is created of those who vibe together because of their mastery of a particular tradition or field of experience or knowledge, and then they become authorities in that field and share with one another from that traditional point of view. That's Saturn rules Aquarius. So we see that those who haven't achieved full mastery in their own inner authority in Capricorn may still be looking to others who are more advanced in that experience than themselves as authorities, and still follow a particular established path to achieve further mastery. The Aquarian aspect, ruled by Uranus, was taken in Einstein, for example. He had achieved full mastery of the field of experience he was being looked to as a teacher. He had mastered the known mathematics at the time fully. He was recognized as someone who had mastered it. And because of that, he realized he couldn't go any further. He had fully mastered that tradition of mathematics, the established tradition of mathematics, and then he broke free, trusted his own inner authority, his own unique experience, and came, and in an Uranian way, broke free of the tradition and set in a whole new way of understanding emotion by his E equals mc squared. But because he had mastered the known field of mathematics, those who were established as authorities in that field listened to him. He had demonstrated his mastery. So in whatever field of mastery we have fully accomplished inner authority, if we're operating on the Uranian frequency, we then are in a position to trust our own inner genius to break free from the known and enter the unknown in a new and exciting way. So, we always get mirrors of this fork in the road, by the outside world, particularly because this is a presidential race and this division between make America great again, that's the Saturnian established view, and Bernie Sanders, just breaking all the rules and saying we need to reinvent, the entire system. So you can see that, you can feel the difference in those two paths. So on an individual or personal evolutionary level, the opportunity of the next 2 to 3 years with Saturn, going into Aquarius, is for us to trust our own inner authority enough that realize that we have achieved an established mastery of a particular field of experience in the known, and be ready and willing to break free of everything we think we know, to be pioneers of completely new ways of relating to each other and the community at large, by connecting to our teams, our guides, because I connect Uranus with the guides that we've been assigned to. Uranus is highly electrical in nature. It can just be shocking and unexpected, and this is what is commonly experienced when a guide of a higher frequency than your own contacts you. Because that frequency is higher, it can actually experience, for those who are sensitive, as a physical shock to your system. And those who are in constant contact with those higher order frequency beings can get to the point where they feel like they're fried because their nervous system is so activated. And it's important for them then to disconnect and go into deep relaxation and meditation and give your nervous systems a time to heal. But whenever Uranus is involved, because we are by nature more readily accessible to the teams that we've been assigned to who do operate at a higher frequency, when they do connect with us, it can feel like a sudden turn of events, like somebody just flipped the lights on. So Saturn in Aquarius, on the higher level, the more active or awakened level, can be those who have established authority in the known, been recognized as authorities in the known cultural matrix, breaking the rules and suddenly stepping forward a whole new, unexpected way of us bringing the communities together and as a breaking wave for the future. One example of that on a mundane level is Barack Obama. He has Jupiter at 0 degrees of Aquarius. What was he known for before he became president? Lewis. Wasn't he known as a community organizer? Yeah, that was his main thing. Aquarius, Jupiter, a community. Aquarius being the community. Jupiter having this great oratory voice that brought the community together. Okay, that's how he stood out. So we may find those who've been icons of the established order, who've been looked to as authorities in particular fields of experience, coming up with entirely new, unexpected ways of moving forward to bring not just the United States community together, but the worldwide community together as a global community, meeting the opportunity to arise to a more awakened and coordinated and cooperative way of humanity moving forward. So we're at the very beginning of this. It's only the first touch of Saturn into Aquarius during the next few months, and won't really fully get underway until mid-December of 2020, when Saturn and Jupiter enter Aquarius, and then the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction on 12/21, with the United States then becoming being given the opportunity. I don't know whether it's going to actually happen or not. Being given the opportunity to be the anchor for the breaking wave of this new age of awakening for the next 20 years, because that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius is mirrored by the inauguration of a new president every 4 years on January 20th, with which the sun is at its 0 Aquarius. So in every inauguration chart, the sun is at 0 Aquarius, ruling the presidency of the next 4 years, which will exactly match the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, which will be in effect for the next 20 years, as the signature of the Age of Awakening beginning. Okay? So I'd be very curious to see. This is a very special election, because it would be really, really curious to me to see who was actually inaugurated as a beginning symbol of that progressive new way of being with the world that brings the world together in very exciting and unexpected ways to become a global community. So I can't imagine Trump being that person, but who knows? Maybe you'll have a near-death experience and completely transformed right in front of our eyes. But whenever Uranus or Aquarius are involved, you'll know that the outcome is completely unexpected. That's something you couldn't have imagined, like just almost out of the blue. And it's like turning a corner. When you turn a 90-degree corner, there's no transition where you sort of see what's around the corner. You just, boom, it's right there. That's very Uranian, by the way. So, do you have any thoughts about that, Glenn? Have you looked at the charts?
Oh, Trump's chart?
The whole, well, it looks like Biden. This looks like it's going to be Biden now, but that's with Bernie Sanders having Mars in late Aries, having a threefold Mars return. Who knows? But I heard from a trusted psychic of mine that Trump would most likely win the election, but not make it to the inauguration for one reason or another, and have something unexpected occur.
And his daughter.
What's that?
His daughter.
Yeah. Well.
She'll bring him down.
What did you say, Glenn?
I said his daughter. You'll see.
Personally, I think it's going to be Melania, but we'll see. Right. Okay. On a more shamanic and esoteric level, Uranus is associated with the shifting of the assemblage point. Anyone here familiar with Carlos Castaneda and the assemblage point? Toltec shamans who see the energy field. When they look at a human being, when they see a human being's energy field, they see a glowing egg. And they see a particular point on that egg where it has a glow, is where the awareness of that person is focused. When a baby is born, and they call that the assemblage point, where a perception is assembled. When a baby is born, that perception point, or that assemblage point, wanders all over the egg. It's not in a fixed position. It's like being on a permanent acid trip. The whole world is just shifting and changing and moving on you. And the baby's task is to master first attention, the attention of the tonal of the world as we know it, the 3D, and assemble the world into a meaningful experience. So as the baby matures, it begins to assemble the world, the tonal, and fix it at a certain point, and that becomes a fixed position. And normally the older a person gets, the more fixed that position is. It establishes their point of view, their worldview, their view of the world. So when Uranus comes along, it reaches maximum solidity in Capricorn. That really is solid. You have this experience of having a solid understanding of yourself and the world around you. You're a master of it. Okay. Really solid assembly point. So what happens when Uranus gets involved, that person has a near-death experience, or a person slaps them on their back in a shamanic way, moves their assemblage point, and their entire reality just starts crumbling. Because the assemblage point begins to wander to a new position of a more expanded understanding of yourself and the world around you. And Uranus can be a shocking event, a turning point that was not expected. This many times happens, in the early 40s or late 30s with the Uranus opposition. The person just has this awakening. It's like their assemblage point is shifted. So with Saturn in Aquarius, I would imagine Saturn's always associated with those who have responsibility for themselves and the community around them, and sometimes the world, have a lot of power, like the father would. There's people in positions of authority and power may have a soul contract with Uranus to call in a shocking event of one kind or another that shifts their assemblage point into an entirely more new, more expanded understanding of themselves and the world around them without any warning. So this is a signature of an awakening. It can be quite sudden, unexpected, and suddenly your whole worldview collapses. The assemblage point is jarred loose from its fixed position and begins to wander. Now the natural consequence of that is that for a period of time, that person will experience a period of disorientation. Everything that made sense to them before no longer makes sense. That assemblage point is moving and expanding and shifting. And a shaman will suggest to that person not to try to reassemble your worldview on its previous position, because that's the natural tendency to make the world make sense again. But to be patient with the movement of the assemblage point, because it will find this new position on its own in a more expanded way. And gradually the world will begin to reassemble itself, the assemblage point, in a more expanded position. So if you have that kind of an event, where someone suddenly dies on you, or a shocking event that just completely disorients you, you know that your assemblage point has been shifted. And it's important to stay with the process, stay present, stay vertical, and allow the world to reassemble itself in that more expanded position without attempting to go back to what was your reality before that you could rely on as stable. Because in fact the world is always changing and nothing's really stable. The only thing you can really rely on is that you're an immortal soul and you can't die. That's a given. Okay? So if you're looking for stability, just remember that. Everything else can shift and change, sometimes quite unexpectedly.